He sat by that fire for 30 winters. 30. Alone in country where the nearest road was a hard 2-day walk south, and the nearest man who'd know his name was farther than that. And what finally took him wasn't the cold. It wasn't a bear. It wasn't the fall through the ice that every one of you is picturing right now. It took 2 hours, start to finish, and he did it to himself with his own 2 hands, sitting warm and dry inside 4 walls he'd built with his own labor. I want you to sit with that for a second before I go on. 30 years of the worst this land can throw at a human being, survived. And then 2 hours. That's the whole story right there. And it's going to sound backward to you the way it sounded backward to me the first time an old hand laid it out. So stay with me. Here's the thing that ought to stop you cold. The warm shelter, the tight-sealed cabin, the snug little cave a man crawls into to get out of the wind. The safe-looking box that feels like the whole point of surviving winter. That shelter has put more experienced woodsmen in the ground than every blizzard and every wolf and every frozen river this country has ever owned. I know how that lands. You spend your whole life being told the cold is the killer, that exposure is the enemy, that the goal of every hard night is to get inside, get sealed up, get warm. And that's exactly the belief that killed him. Because the danger out here was never the cold reaching in. The danger was the fire, doing the one quiet thing a fire does when you finally close it up tight and give it what it wants. Let me tell you who I am first, so you understand I'm not guessing at any of this. I've wintered alone. I've built the shelters and banked the fires and slept the sleep of a tired man with good coals glowing in the dark beside me. And I've woken up in the gray hours with a headache splitting my skull and no earthly idea why. And dragged myself out into the killing cold on instinct alone. And only understood later, years later, an old trapper explaining it to me over his own fire, that the instinct is the only reason I'm still drawing breath. The men who taught me this didn't read it in any book. They buried friends over it. Good men. Careful men. Men who'd done everything right for decades, and then made the one mistake that doesn't give you a second try. So when I tell you the shelter is the danger, I'm not being clever. I'm handing you the thing that nearly went into the ground with the last of them. And here's the riddle I want you to carry. The one I'll hold back until the end, because dumping it now would rob it of its weight. How does a warm man freeze? Because that's how they found more than one of them. Warm shelter, good fire burnt down to coals, a man laid out peaceful as sleep, and the cold creeping into him only after. How a warm man freezes. Keep it in the back of your mind, because it matters more than anything else I'll say tonight. And the answer is the whole spine of this thing. Before any of it makes sense, you have to understand what happened in that cabin. He'd done what any of you would do, what feels like the very definition of taking care of yourself. The wind had come up hard out of the north, the kind that finds every gap and every seam and reaches in with cold fingers to pull the warmth right out of your bones. So he did the sensible thing. He chinked the last of the gaps. He hung a hide over the door. He built the fire up good and banked it down for the night so it would hold its heat till morning, low and steady and glowing. And he sealed that shelter up tight as a drum against the storm outside. Every single thing he did was correct by the logic he'd been handed. Keep the heat in, keep the cold out. Feed the fire, seal the room, sleep warm. And every single thing he did tightened the noose a little more. Because a fire in a sealed room is not your friend. A fire in a sealed room is a slow thief. And the thing it steals is the air itself. Now, here's where I need you to lean in close, because if this next piece doesn't land, then nothing else I tell you will keep you or yours alive. Most people alive today carry a belief so deep they don't even know they hold it. And the belief is this: that fire needs wood, and that as long as there's wood and the fire's burning clean and there's no smoke choking the room, everything's fine. Smoke is the enemy, they think. If I can't smell smoke and my eyes aren't stinging, the air's good. That's the belief, and out here, it's dead wrong. And it's wrong in a way that will never once warn you before it's too late. Because a fire needs two things, not one. It needs the wood, yes, but every breath that fire takes, it takes from the same air you're breathing. And when you seal that room up tight to keep the cold out, you've also sealed it tight against the one thing you and the fire are fighting over. And the fire will win that fight every single time. Because the fire doesn't get tired, and it doesn't get scared, and it doesn't wake up in the night. The old hands understood something about fire that we've flat forgotten. A fire that has all the air it wants burns clean and burns hot and burns bright. And it makes a gas when it burns that rises up and goes out the smoke hole and troubles nobody. But a fire that's been banked down low, choked back, given just enough air to smolder and hold its coals through a long night. A fire starved for air the way you starve it when you seal the room. That fire changes what it makes. It stops making the clean gas that rises and leaves, and it starts making a different thing entirely. A gas with no smell to it at all, no color, no sting in the eyes, no catch in the throat, nothing your body was ever built to notice. It pools low and quiet in that sealed room, and it does not warn you, and it does not wait, and it does not care how many winters you've survived. That gas is the second thing your fire makes when you starve it. And here's what it does once you breathe it. Sit with this, because it's the answer to how a warm man freezes, though I told you I'd hold that back, and I will hold it back a while longer yet. This gas gets into your blood, and it lies to your blood the way that lean winter meat lies to a starving man's belly. Your blood is built to carry the good air, the living air, out to every corner of you, to your fingers and your feet, and most of all to the thinking part of you up behind your eyes. And this gas, this silent thing the starved fire makes, it slips into your blood and takes the place where the good air was supposed to ride. And it holds that place and won't let go. And it holds it far tighter than the good air ever could. So your blood keeps moving, keeps pumping, keeps going round and round like it always has. But it's carrying poison instead of life. And it's delivering that poison to every part of you. And there is not one single thing in your body built to tell you it's happening. That's the cruelty of it. That's what makes this a true mountain story, and not just a warning. When a man freezes, his body screams at him the whole way down. When a man starves, his belly claws at him. When a man's drowning, every nerve he owns is fighting for the surface. But this thing, this quiet gas from the choked fire, it takes away the very part of you that would sound the alarm. The first thing it fogs is your thinking. So the man doesn't wake in a panic. He gets a dull headache in his sleep, the kind you'd shrug off any other night. He gets heavy. He gets warm and slow and comfortable, more comfortable than he's felt all winter. And if some deep old animal part of him does stir and whisper that something's wrong, the poison has already dulled the part of him that would listen. He rolls over. He pulls the hide up higher. He sinks down deeper into the warm. And that's it. That's the whole 2 hours. No struggle, no sound. A careful man doing the careful thing, sliding out of this world so gentle he never knew he'd left. Hold tight to that, because now I want to tell you who lived through this and who didn't, And it's the same divide it always is out here. The people who'd lived on this land 1,000 winters running, the ones whose grandmothers taught their mothers who taught them, they built their fires and their shelters knowing this in their bones. Though they'd never have said it the way I'm saying it. They left the smoke hole open at the top, always, no matter how cold, no matter how the wind pulled the heat out through it. They'd sooner lose warmth than lose the air, because they knew, deep down where knowing lives, that a shelter has to breathe or the people in it stop breathing. They knew that a low, sullen, smoldering fire in a tight room was a thing to fear more than an honest hot fire under an open hole. They didn't have the words for the gas. They didn't need them. They had the practice, handed down so many times it had stopped being knowledge and become instinct. And the ones who died were the ones who copied the shelter and skipped the knowing. The trappers, the settlers, the prospectors, the lone, hard men who watched how a warm lodge was built and thought they understood it. They saw the walls and the fire and the sealed door, and they copied every bit of it. And they never learned the one thing that wasn't a thing you could see.
They never learned that the open hole at the top wasn't sloppiness. It wasn't wasted heat. It was the whole secret. It was the difference between a shelter and a coffin. And they sealed it up out of good sense and froze the warm death with the fire still glowing. They copied the killing part and threw away the wisdom, same as men always do, and the country let them. So here's the fix, and I'll hand it to you in layers the way it was handed to me, because giving it to you all at once would rob it of its weight. And the fix is free. It costs you nothing but the willingness to do the thing that feels backward. The first layer flips your whole head around. You do not seal the shelter. You never, ever seal it all the way. Everything in you, every instinct you own, is going to fight this when the wind's howling and the cold's got its fingers in every gap. Every part of you will want to close that last opening and hold the warmth. And that is exactly the instinct that kills you. The priority was never keeping the cold out. The priority is keeping the air moving. A little cold coming in is the price of the air going round. And it is the cheapest price you will ever pay for anything. Because the alternative is the 2 hours. You accept the draft. You bless the draft. That thin, cold thread of moving air is the thread your life hangs on. The second layer is the part modern folks discard without a thought. The opening at the top, the smoke hole, the vent, the crack you leave up high where the bad air rises and the good air is drawn in low behind it. Modern man has spent 100 years learning to seal everything, to weather strip and caulk and insulate and make every box he lives in tighter than the last. And every bit of that instinct is trained straight into you. And every bit of it is wrong the moment you've got open flame in an enclosed space. The old hands would leave that hole open in a blizzard, take the loss of heat as a fair trade, because they understood the trade. Heat you can rebuild with another log. The air, once it's gone bad, gives you no second log and no second chance. The third layer feels almost like cheating once you learn it, and it's this. You put out the fire before you sleep, or you damn near put it out. The banked fire, the low glowing coals you keep alive through the night to wake up warm. That comfortable, smoldering bed of embers. That is the single most dangerous fire there is. Because a smoldering, starved fire makes far more of the silent gas than an honest, roaring one. So you let it burn down to almost nothing, or you cover it entirely, and you sleep colder for it, and you wake in the cold and build it fresh. Feels like cheating because it's so simple. Feels like cheating because it's the exact opposite of what comfort tells you to do. But a cold sleep and a living morning beats a warm sleep you never wake from. And the fourth layer is the one that sounds like madness until it clicks, the same as it always does. When it's coldest, when the storm is worst, when every fiber of you is
begging to build that fire higher and seal that room tighter. That is precisely when you do less of both. You burn smaller, you open wider. The worse the night, the more air you give away. I'll say it again because everything in you fights it. The colder it gets, the more you let the cold in. Because the cold, at least, will wake you. The cold argues its case loud and honest against your skin. And a man can answer the cold with a blanket or a fire built fresh. But the gas makes no argument at all. It just takes you. So you side with the enemy you can feel over the friend that lies. Now circle back to the riddle I told you to hold. How does a warm man freeze? Here's the whole answer laid out plain, and once you see it, everything locks into place. The gas puts him under, gentle and warm, and he stops feeding the fire because he's unconscious. And the fire that was banked so low burns itself down to dead ash in the dark. And now there's no more gas being made, but there's no more heat being made either. And the cold that was waiting outside the whole time, patient as the grave, comes seeping in through those walls. And it finds a man who cannot feel it and cannot answer it and cannot build the fire back up. And it takes him the rest of the way. So they find him frozen in a shelter he sealed against the freezing, killed first by the very fire he built to keep him warm. A warm man froze. The two things that were supposed to save him, the shelter and the fire, working together to do the killing. That's the answer, and it's uglier and quieter than any bear. You're wondering by now why nobody ever told you this, why it isn't plain common sense, and the answer is the same quiet answer it always is. It has nothing to do with any conspiracy and everything to do with money and time and the slow forgetting that comes when a thing stops being needed. A piece of hard-won wisdom only stays alive as long as people's lives depend on it day to day. And the day the chimney came, the proper built chimney that draws clean and vents true, the day the stove replaced the open fire, the day a man could heat his house without ever once thinking about the air he breathed, that was the day this knowing started to die. Because a good chimney does the remembering for you. It carries the bad air out, whether you understand why or not. And a truth that a machine keeps for you is a truth you stop keeping for yourself. Then it got worse, and this is the part that ought to make you sit up straight. Because the modern world took the old truth and flipped it clean upside down and sold it right back to you. Today, the whole industry, the whole marketing of comfort, is built on the exact opposite of what kept those men alive. Seal it tighter. That's what they sell you now. Airtight, energy efficient, weather tight. Every window and door and wall sold to you on the promise that not one breath of air will get in or out. And they stamp that on the box like it's a virtue. The tighter the better, the sealed home the prize. And it works fine, right up until the power dies in an ice storm and a family drags a grill inside to keep warm, or fires up a generator in the sealed garage, or lights the camp stove in the sealed tent, doing the sensible warm thing in the tightest box they own. There's no money in telling you to leave a gap. There's no product to sell in the word open. There's a fortune in sealed and a graveyard behind it, and the two have never once been connected on any label you'll ever read. Let me be straight with you now, the way I'd want a man to be straight with me, because I'd rather you trust me than be impressed by me. This exact thing, the lone trapper froze in his cabin, that's not coming for most of you. You've got a furnace and a chimney and a house built to breathe just enough. But do not walk away thinking this is only an old story about old men in old cabins. Because this quiet killer, this silent gas from the starved fire, it takes people every single winter, right now, today, in warm, modern homes. It takes the family that ran the generator too close to the house when the storm knocked the lights out. It takes the campers who brought the little heater into the sealed tent to beat the cold. It takes the folks who lit charcoal indoors to cook when the power was down. Every one of them was doing the warm, sensible, careful thing.
Every one of them sealed the room and fed the fire and never knew a thing was wrong, right up until the moment it had them. Same killer, same 2 hours, same terrible gentleness. The cabin just moved indoors. And I won't skip the one hard fact that proves I'm not spinning you a campfire tale, because this one is written down about as plain as anything I know. That silent gas has a name, carbon monoxide, and it is documented and studied and understood down to the last detail by every fire authority and health institution there is. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention in this country puts it in plain black and white every single year, warning flat out never to burn charcoal or run a generator or use any fuel-burning thing inside an enclosed space. And they name it what it is, the silent killer, because it gives no warning your body can catch. When the government prints a rule that plain to keep its own people breathing, you can take that one straight to the bank. The old hands never had that name. They had the open smoke hole and the fear in their bones, and it kept them alive just as sure. We got the name and the science and the machines, and somewhere in getting them, we let go of the fear, and the fear was the part that mattered. Here's how you carry all of this. Not as panic, but as a plain way of doing things. The whole of it small enough to hold in one hand and free as the cold air itself. When there's open flame in an enclosed space, the shelter has to breathe. Always. No exceptions, no matter how cold. You leave the opening high, where the bad air rises and the good air comes in low behind it. You fear the low, smoldering, banked fire more than the honest, hot one. You let it die down before you sleep, and you wake in the cold and build it fresh, rather than sleep warm and easy over a starving flame. And the colder and worse the night, the more air you give away, because the cold will wake you, and the gas never will. Never bring a burning thing into a sealed box to warm you or feed you. Not a grill, not a generator, not a heater, not a stove, not ever. Because the warmth it gives you is the bait, and the air it eats is the trap. None of it costs a thing, and that's the part I keep coming back to. The thing that saves your life is the gap, the opening, the little bit of cold you let in on purpose, the comfort you refuse to take. The whole secret was in the thing everybody else seals shut without a second thought. The same as the marrow was in the bone that everybody throws away. The wisdom was sitting in the draft the whole time. And maybe that's the real lesson, the one bigger than fires and bigger than cabins. That man didn't die because the wilderness was cruel to him, because the wilderness was only ever just the wilderness. He died because he was sure. Sure that warm meant safe. Sure that sealed meant protected. Sure that 30 winters of survival had taught him everything the cold could teach, when the thing that killed him had nothing to do with the cold at all. The country never kills the humble man half as fast as it kills the certain one, and the oldest and wisest hands out here feared their own certainty more than they ever feared the storm. That's the thing I'd hand down to you ahead of any trick at all. The moment you're sure you've got winter figured, winter starts figuring you. So tell me down in the comments, because I truly want to know, what did your own family do to heat the house in the cold? And did anybody ever teach you to crack a window when the fire was burning? Or was that a thing that got left behind somewhere along the way? I want to hear how your people kept their air. Next time, I'm going to hand you another one that turns everything you've been told clean on its head. An old rule about what to do when the cold has already gotten deep into a man, when he's been out too long and he's finally back by the fire, and it runs dead against every kind instinct you've got. The kind where the warmest, most loving thing you could do for a freezing man, the thing anybody would rush to do, is the very thing most likely to stop his heart cold. And I'll show you why, and what the old hands did instead.
Until then, take care of your fire, and remember that a fire you can't hear breathing is a fire that's breathing for you.